All right, part 5, final part here, talking about how the left has gone nuts since Trump declared his candidacy for president, and we're currently wrapping up with the 2020 State of the Union address and how far more egregious the Democrats' behavior was during this speech than in any other speech by anybody at any time in our history. First of all, there was the return of the great amount of boycotting presidents, or boycotting Democrats, who never even bothered to show up for the speech. All of them representatives, because that's where all the Democrats apparently are. Al Green of Texas, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, Maxine Waters, California, Benny Thompson, Mississippi, Bobby Rush of Illinois, Steve Cohen of Tennessee, Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, Hank Johnson of Georgia, Frederica Wilson of Florida. In fact, Steve Cohen, Earl Blumenauer, I've never been to one of his speeches ever. All 3 they've missed. And these 4 Republicans actually walked out in the middle of his speech. Not unheard of, but rare. Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, Tim Ryan of Ohio, Bill Pascrell of New Jersey. Rashida Tlaib, by the way, said she walked out because of the, quote, shameless bragging about taking away food stamps that people depend on to live, end quote. She said some more things before and after that. Bragging about taking away food stamps. This is why she walked out. This woman is so stupid that she actually believed that Trump and the Republicans were bragging that they took food stamps away from people that they needed to live on. That actually happened. This twit doesn't realize that what he was actually saying is that these people no longer needed food stamps to live on. That their standard of living had risen to a level that no longer required the handout. Isn't that supposed to be the goal of welfare? To raise people out of the need of welfare? No, this just proves that she's either too stupid to understand what the man was saying, or that she believes that people should be on welfare and food stamps forever. That's where their power is, folks. Without that, without the Democrats keeping these people on the Democrat plantation, their power is gone. That's why you walk out. Let me put this into perspective, folks. There have been there have been very few walkouts. I think there have been 2 Republicans, only 2 Republicans that have ever walked out. They walked out on Obama in recent history. But they were on 2 different speeches. So one walked out on one speech, and another walked out on another speech. One was because they started talking about promoting abortions, and this guy was a very religious anti-abortion guy. I don't remember what the other reason was. But that's 2. We've had 4 walk out in just one speech. But that's not the big comparison. Remember, everything's about balance, folks, about who does something, not who does it, but who does it more and more egregiously. Always the Democrats. Do it worse, do it more egregiously. The left-wing media likes to say, oh, but Republicans have boycotted Democrats' State of the Union's addresses. And yes, they have. Some have not come, some because we're ill, some for other reasons. I do believe that a total of, between Clinton and Obama, there was a total of 8 people Republicans who did not show up for those speeches, going back all the way to the beginning of Clinton. So we're talking about 25 years now, or 27 years now. Just during Trump, there have been something like 24 boycotts by Democrats. Some of them the same Democrats, but 24 versus 8. Do you see a sameness there, or do you see a difference there? Many of the Democrat women wore those white dresses again. They were stupid. They just stuck on stupid. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi did not introduce Trump in the customary fashion, a tradition that goes back quite a long way. Possibly she did this because he started his speech the previous year before she could properly introduce him. Although I looked at that video, it didn't look like she ever even tried to properly introduce him. However, she didn't feel snubbed. According to an interview right after the speech, she said there was no problem. So if that wasn't the reason, then why did she not introduce President Trump in the customary manner? It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce the President of the United States. Instead, she just said, members of Congress, the President of the United States. Why? Because she's a bitch. Why? Because they're having a feud. Why? Because she's a petty little shit. That's why. There were complaints that Trump didn't shake Pelosi's hand, offered hand, and the video shows that happening. However, a certain view from the side of the podium in the dais shows that as her hand was coming forward, Trump's eyes were closing in a blink or in something as he turned his head away from her and the vice president. He may not have even seen it. Her hand, I mean. By the way, he didn't shake Vice President Pence's hand at that time either. And thirdly, I'd like to point out that why in God's name should he want to shake her hand after the crap she just put him through with the impeachment? I wouldn't have shaken her hand. I would have slapped her face. Didn't shake her hand. Screw that noise. Did she deserve it? No. Shaking her hand. And of course, there was no applause for the following from the left. Record low unemployment for minorities, he repeated that. Lowest unemployment for women in 70 years, and stating that women had filled 72% of all the jobs created the prior year. They couldn't even applaud something they themselves are highly invested in. They couldn't applaud for millions lifted off welfare and food stamps. We talked about that. They couldn't applaud for record unemployment for veterans, creating millions of jobs since taking office, 7 million as it turned out. Lowest unemployment in 50 years. They couldn't applaud that the median household income in the United States was at its highest level ever recorded. Nancy Pelosi wouldn't even stand up for the UMCA being put into, being signed into law, which she falsely took credit for itself. She tried to say that her minuscule little changes were what made the thing a viable, passable bill, even though, and it was because it was a non-starter when it came to her. But when he brought up the fact that a bipartisan group of people in the Congress signed it in law, she couldn't even stand up and applaud it. And she wanted to take credit for it. Does that make any sense? Nope. Can't give Trump the win. Some Democrats also refused to stand and applaud for a young girl who received a scholarship to attend the school of her choice. Why? Because they're against school choice. Got to keep indoctrinating those kids, folks. They couldn't stand and applaud for many of them, a couple of them, I should say, not a lot of them, but a couple of them, the squad. 100-year-old former Tuskegee Airman. They couldn't stand up and applaud for the legitimate president of Venezuela. Why? They like that socialism, folks. They couldn't applaud for a homeless veteran who found work because of Trump's opportunity zones he created. They couldn't stand up and applaud for parents of a child or for children murdered by Islamic terrorists. Why? They're on the side of the terrorists if it helps, because it helps Trump. Because it hurts Trump, I should say. The survival of a child born at 21 weeks. Why? Because they want late-term abortions, folks. A service member's reunion with his family was yawned at. And of course, Rush Limbaugh getting his Medal of Freedom was an abject horror for these people. 40 years doing what he does with excellence. They couldn't even give the man the win, knowing he was sick with lung cancer, which many of them prayed he would have, by the way, or some type of illness. But at the end of it all, when all things came to conclusion, with the cameras still rolling, Pelosi stood up and started ripping in half her copy of the speech into shreds right in front of the rolling cameras. And when asked why, as she walked out of the chamber, her incredible response was, quote, "It was a courtesy considering the alternatives," end quote. What alternatives? What alternatives are you talking about, Nancy? Will somebody please grab her ass, throw her up against the wall, and ask her what effing alternatives was she considering? Throwing it in his face? All the little disdainful faces, the flipping of the pages of the copy of your speech, the sucking on her dentures, the waving at people in the crowd, the wriggling in her chair. All indications of a meltdown by a sore loser who failed to remove the president she has been at war with since he was elected. And indicative, friends, of a group of people on the left, basically the whole left, who have been having a meltdown, a temper tantrum, because they themselves have been unable to stop Donald Trump from doing what he's doing. Let's think about this for a second. Considering all of this nonsense, page after page of proof and anecdotal evidence of their nuttiness, of their absolute meltdown, and Trump still has accomplished more than almost any president in 3 years in history. Just imagine how much he would accomplish if he had even just a modicum of their help. Just imagine how much he would accomplish if they had at least treated him as badly, only as badly as they treated Reagan, or George H.W. Bush, or George W. Bush. If they had given him even just 100 days grace period before going into impeachment discussions, just imagine what he'd have been able to accomplish. They can't do it, folks. They can't afford it. They can't give him the win. Any win, no matter how minor it is. They will go out of their way to express something that they themselves wanted to do. Take the border wall. Years ago, during Obama, who wanted the wall? Schumer, Hillary, talking about a wall. Let's do a wall. Let's make a fence. Let's stop the border. Illegal aliens are bad. They're hurting our economy. As soon as Trump says the same exact freaking thing, it's no good. Stop it. End it. Cease it. Obama puts children of illegal aliens in cages while he's processing them. Nobody says a freaking thing. Trump inherits the practice, and suddenly he's guilty of it, he's responsible for it, and he's the bad guy. Same exact thing, but now it's bad. Trump has to be blamed. He's the bad guy. And it goes on and on and on. The left tries to say that the right is guilty of the same things they are, but not to the same amount, not to the same proportion, not to the same depth, not even close, folks. It never is. Did we call for impeachments for Obama for all the scandals he was involved in, going after people at the IRS, going after the media, Fox News, Fast and Furious, Benghazi, the incompetence of running things, the apology tour? No. When we went after Clinton, we went after actual crimes. 12 separate indictments of actual crimes. There's no comparison, folks. They are absolutely unhinged, and they're going further and further to the right, to the left, because they've let the inmates take over their asylum. And that's all it is. It's a nut house. It's a clown show. It's a circus. It's a dumpster fire. Why anyone would want to be have anything to do with those people is beyond me. Meanwhile, Trump has turned out to be a fairly conservative dude, turned out to be pro-Constitution, pro-America. He's a guy without an agenda, really. His only agenda is putting Americans and America first. That used to be something even Democrats could agree on with, but not today. They can't do it. They can't bring themselves to do it. Why? Because their head and their heart is filled with hate. They call us the haters because of transference. They're the haters. They're the collusioners. What's the word? They're the ones who interfere in elections. They're the ones guilty of all the things they blame us on the right and Trump for. And there's an election coming up soon. And when we find out who their candidate's going to be, I'm going to barrel into that moron like nobody's business. I guarantee that. In the meantime, let's just call the whole left wing out of their minds, because they are. There will be an entry in some medical journal one day, TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. It's a foregone conclusion. So I hope what you've seen here is that all these things taken together, and I just scratched the surface. There are hundreds and hundreds of more anecdotal evidence of riots and violence and stupid things going on from the left that far, far, far outnumbers and outweighs anything the right might have been doing during the same period to prove that they literally have gone insane. So, I don't know what this chapter is going to be called yet, but it'll be something about the left being insane, but we already know that by now, don't we? Anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. And by the way, please feel free, share the videos, talk about it with your friends, tell them where to go see it. It's on YouTube. It's also on my page, Why I'm Right, in Facebook. Please share these things and tell people about them. I'm not an aggressive guy. I don't push this thing into people's faces. I'm purposely not putting it on my regular Facebook posts. I want people, it's a passive thing. I want people to come see it, but the only way that's going to do is word of mouth. So I'd appreciate that, you doing that if you would. I hope you enjoy the videos, and feel free to look at my other ones that are out there. There's somewhere 34 different videos, somewhere up to nearing 200 different individual videos out there. And so do appreciate those who do watch and do get something out of them. And I also appreciate if you want to comment, I'll comment back. Anything you can do to maybe help promote or comment on what's going on with these videos. I know I'm not famous, and I'm not trying to be. I'm not, a podcaster and pushing it out into the airwaves. I'm not, the chicks on the right. I'm not Rush Limbaugh. I'm not Sean Hannity. I'm doing what I do. And maybe you can, if you like it, you should try to help other people get involved too. So definitely would appreciate that. Anyway, see you next time. Toodles.